Because I was in art school, my father said, listen, you go to school, I'll take care of everything else. Just focus on school, which was cool. But when it came time to get money from Pops for pennies, it was like, get a job. And so I said, you know what? I could try to make money and do things. So I would take, say, a silk screening course for the sole purpose of learning how to do silk screens on t-shirts. So I would do silk screens on t-shirts, and one of my things was doing these combat boots. I've been wearing these combat boots since college. And what I would do is paint on these boots. And at the time, everybody was wearing those vintage biker jackets, and I would do artwork on those biker jackets. So when I was hanging out in the clubs, I would always have a bunch of markers on me. And I would paint people's boots and paint people's jackets for a little extra money. And when I was downtown Newark selling, the mixtapes with my boys, I would be right there on the spot doing artwork on people's boots, jackets, hats, whatever. And so I was always inventive with how I could make, extra money. And so in college, it really helped.
He became Keith Haring.
I tried to. But watching people like Keith Haring and Andy Warhol, Basquiat, and also when I was in school, I met Jerry Gant for the first time. And so Jerry and I would just talk shop. And at one point I was working for this clothing store called Scream. And Scream was, imagine a vintage clothing store meets a raver fashion. This was during the early 90s. And all the clothing stores had art all over the wall, but it looked like a bunch of drunk graffiti artists went in there and just did whatever. And so the district or regional manager of display found out that I was working, and I worked with her when I used to do windows at Nordstrom. So she was like, oh, you work here? She says, we got to get you to paint some of these stores because this stuff looks like a mess. And so I got Jerry Gant and another friend of mine, Adolfo, to come with me, and I think we did 14 stores. I know I personally did 14 stores in all. But they basically changed the whole layout of the store based on our designs. And it's always like, I've always been the type to think outside of the box. For a number of years now, my work has been in Vonda's kitchen. And again, the opportunity came to put my artwork in a restaurant. And I was like, wow, this is kind of working out. And now all of a sudden, there's this like surge of alternative artist spaces. And I was doing it ahead of the game. I was doing live painting in clothing stores, and it's just one of those things that came naturally to me.
Any more questions?
This piece down here at the end, the way you described it, it felt like it was torture for you. But then at the end, you said this is a new direction.
Yeah.
So, are you making more work like this?
That dense work, this is what I actually love to do. The only problem with this sort of thing is it's higher end. I'm asking more money for it. It looks nice and everything, and these paintings right here I could do fairly fast. Those I'm working on for months and not knowing where to go. And part of the creative process is to not rush it and just keep working over it. And see, now it's the sort of thing where I put the canvas up, paint something, knowing that I'm going to paint over it. And I'll take pictures of it, show it on Instagram, and people are like, oh, that's a nice piece, and then knowing that it's changed up. And then like 2 weeks later, I put up another painting or picture, and they think it's a different painting, but it's the same painting. And so it goes back to doing a live painting. With live painting, I could be in the nightclub, I'm chilling out, painting, and I could go in one direction, people look at it.
Those little plastic twist things.
Yes.
Yes, I need those by the 1,000.
Very cool. And how do you apply those to the work that you're doing?
Well,
Are you using them like as buttons, like in some of the...
I am turning them into beads right now to crochet them into rope. But I've been using them in making like little florets with other pieces of plastic and then embellishing them with either crystals and then putting them in the hair of my mixed media pieces. So I love taking this piece of plastic and making it something almost delicious.
Right, something totally unexpected.
Yeah, but the reason why I need thousands of them is because I'm crocheting rope out of them. So I need like thousands.
Like, it's interesting, my day job, I work for a pharmaceutical company. And so, you ever see those pill boxes where for each day you put a pill in?
Yeah.
So what ends up happening when you pop the tab, this little piece of plastic falls to the bottom. So when they end up back at the pharmacy, they're all over the table. And I found out, I could take these. So I have a closet, literally, with a bunch of these little bags. And I've had it for at least 10 years.
Wow.
And I just now found a use
Like
for
what
it.
to do with
Oh yeah. And it's like little things like that. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with pill bottles. Because I have garbage bags full of pill bottles.
Bring them over.
So that.
I can trade some stuff, I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a hoarder too.
Yeah. And so I said I can't bring any more of these items like that. But I mean, these little, I have them in sandwich bags so you don't miss them. They're underneath the cabinet.
Right.
But it's interesting what you bring in.
I've been dremeling them and threading them through LED lights and turning them into garland.
Oh, wow.
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 So it's literally strings of pill bottles.
Yeah. And so I've been doing, I guess, sculpture. That was my beginning. And so now I've been doing these like masks, this small mask, and somebody gave me an African mask that was, nice size. And I covered the African mask with this whole mixed media collage thing. So it looks like that on the African mask that's like that big. And I have a smaller one where I started the whole mixed media thing. It wasn't working out, and I painted the mask black. And in the forehead, it has this diamond, like there was something there, and it's a cutout. And so I took my mother's and my brother's ashes and put it in that. And I was like, And it just, again, something organically happening. And I said, all right, I need to make more of these masks, or go to like, what is it? TJ Maxx, where they sell the masks for like dirt cheap on clearance. And a friend of mine does these molds. And so he was saying, oh man, I can show you how, and he's showing me how to do them, but do molds of these masks. And I can mass produce them. And so the vision, and artists, I know most artists, they think of what they could do if they had like, they hit the lottery, like what they would do. And one of the things I would do is do these little masks, but imagine this whole wall with these small masks. Monochromatic. Say the wall is black and do all these black masks on the wall. It's amazing what you can think of when you daydream.
All right, any more questions, Saul?
Hands down, before you started talking, that piece, I said, that's the pick of the show.
Thank you.
But when you describe it, then I like the angst of it. That's my question is, because you talked about it looked like something you would do, so you covered it up. So that restless reinvention, when did that start, or where does that
I think it started, somebody mentioned the talks, the portfolio reviews. I went to a portfolio review and got a bad review. And so at first I was angry. And then the direction that they told me to go in was in these new pieces that I was doing. And so I take criticism, you know, it's you can't please everybody. You know, and you have to really think about that as an artist. You can't please everybody. But there is some validity to what some people tell you. So with this, what I said was, all right, they've seen my work before. I think my goal as an artist was to, and still is to create work. When you walk in the room, you say, oh, that's a Kortez.
Okay.
That's the end game. You know, so like all of my favorite artists, like Warhol. You look at even his photographs. You look at one of his photographs, you know it's a Warhol. You look at Keith Haring, you know it's a Keith Haring. You look at Wiley Kincaid. You know, you look at those artists' work, you know it's their work. And so my whole thing is, and my goal is to create work so when people come into the room, they know it's a Kortez. And so that kind of is the driving force between with the whole trying to create something new and trying to go outside the box. Because it's funny, once you get a comfort zone, it's very easy to stay there, especially if you're getting all these accolades and people purchase your work. It's like, oh, okay. But then after a while, you start to, all right, I need to do something new. But I find it interesting when you look at some artists' work who's up there and all their work looks the same. And it's basically them appealing to their public, and they found a voice and they stick with it. But if you look at, say, somebody like a Picasso, and you look at his full body of work, even though a lot of the work, you could tell, all right, Picasso did it, but he's doing ceramics, he's doing sculpture, he's doing, he was doing the illustrations with the light, you know, but you knew it was Picasso, you know, and so that's what I want to be able to do, to have that creative freedom. And going back to what somebody said about working a regular job, I used to hate the fact that I had a regular job. I used to hate it. I had this really good job at Nordstrom. I was the assistant manager of housekeeping, but I wanted to be in display. So for like 3 years, I'm pestering them, I'm volunteering, I'm doing extra hours in display, trying to work in display. Finally got it. I was miserable. And it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And my old manager said, listen, be my assistant in Paramus, and you know, you'll get more money than what you were ever getting in display. He's like, man, that's just it's a fluff job.
Did you feel like display was sort of sucking the creativity out of your head?
It wasn't that, it was personnel. It was racism, sexism. There was a lot of things going on there, and I was burnt out between going to work and then coming home and being miserable. It just sucked a lot. It wasn't the job itself. I love fashion. Actually, I worked at the Gap. I worked at that store Greene, what I did all the 14s. I loved it. I loved retail, but the whole business model of hiring people in retail has shifted over the years. And my last job was at the Gap. And when I left the Gap, actually I got fired. They were cutting hours. And to do the windows, they would give you a diagram of the window and say, all right, it's going to take you 2 hours to do the decals. It's going to take you an hour to take the clothes off the mannequin. It's going to take you an hour and a half to iron all your clothes. It's going to take you 2 hours to put the clothes back. And I had no help.